Hi, I hope all is going well today and you're having a beautiful, blessed day. Today, I want to share with you these sermon notes from this past weekend. This past weekend, we continued our sermon series called Developing a Heart for God. And as you guys know, if you've been with me for this past week, we started this series last week, and it is all based on the life of King David. So this second sermon is called Finding the Courage to Face Giants. And all of the scripture that I'll be reading today comes from 1 Samuel chapter 17. And the first passage that I want to read to you today comes from verses 1 through 4. It says, "The Philistines now mustered their armies for battle and camped between Soch and Judah and Azekah at Ephes Dam. Saul countered by gathering the Israelites near the valley of Eli. So the Philistines and Israelites faced each other on opposite hills. A Philistine champion from Gath came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. And I forgot to mention that this Philistine champion, of course, we know him as Goliath. So, at this point, the armies of Israel and Gath, they're facing each other, and the scripture says they are on opposite hills. So the second passage comes from verses 8 through 11, and it says, Goliath stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. "Why are you all coming at me to fight?" he called. "I am the Philistine champion, but you are only the servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be our slaves. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me." When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. So at this point, the Israelite army is scared. They are deeply shaken, meaning they are terribly scared and they want to run the other way. And so the next passage I want to read you comes from verses 32 through 37, and it is the discussion that David has with King Saul. And David says, "Don't worry about this Philistine," David told Saul. "I'll fight him." "Don't be ridiculous," Saul replied. "There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since his youth." But David persisted. I have been taking care of my father's sheep and goats," he said. When a lion or bear came to steal When a lion or bear came to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns against me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I have done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine 2. For he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and bear will rescue me from this Philistine. Saul finally consented. So David has been telling him, I have the experience to fight this Philistine because I have fought animals that have tried to steal my flock. And this giant is nothing but a human animal. So this is where he convinces Saul that he knows how to fight. And the last section of scripture that I want to read to you comes from verses 48 through 51. And it says, as Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it with a sling, hit the Philistine in the forehead, and the stone sank in. Can you imagine being hit directly right here in the middle of your forehead and the stone not bouncing back off, the stone sinking into your forehead? And Goliath stumbled down and fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistines with only a sling and a stone. He had no sword. Then David ran over and pulled Goliath's sword from his sheath. David used it and cut off his head. To kill him and cut off his head. So, can you imagine? God used a teenage boy to kill a giant because that teenage boy had so much faith in who his God was. So now I want to read you or teach you the 4 points that we can learn or that we can use to have faith in the face of fear. And this acronym or these lessons spell the word fear. So the first thing we have to do is find out the facts. Anything we face, we should not be frightened until we find out the facts. What is actually going to go on in our lives? 2, we have to eliminate defeatist thinking. Defeatist thinking is, I'm not going to be able to do that. I wasn't able to do that in the past, so why am I going to be able to do that now? The third thing we have to do is apply the tools that God has given us. So everything that God has given us, almost everything that God has given us, if not everything that God has given us, can be a tool that we can use, a tool in our arsenal that we can use to remind ourselves that God has given us the strength to fight this battle. And the fourth thing that we need to do is something that I just touched on right now, and it is to remember God's help in the past. So whenever you're feeling fearful or whenever you're feeling inadequate, remember how God has helped you in your past. So I hope that this finds you well. And the last thing that I want to leave with you before I sign off for today is our memory verse. And our memory verse comes from Psalm chapter 20, verse 7. And it says, some trust in chariots and some trust in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. So I hope that this finds you well and you're having a great, great day. And all of these notes will be on my website shortly. And I hope you would go find them, print them out for yourself if you have not written them down already. And keep them with you as a reminder of how God can help you through your troubles and fears. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a beautiful, blessed day. God bless. Bye-bye.